Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Network 27. I'm Alderman Walter Burnett, Alderman of the 27th Ward. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who worked with us to put this show together. Of course, we want to thank God for the opportunity. We want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. So we're in the month of June, and it's nice outside. There's a lot of great things happening. People doing a lot of different things with their properties. A lot of kids out of school. I hope that all of the young people have taken advantage of getting the summer jobs with the city, and that they have something constructive to do this summer. There are some websites on the city's page that you can get more information if you don't have anything for your young folks to do. And I want to thank all of the business community for hiring our young people this summer. And please continue to do that, and hopefully those young folks will be able to continue to work throughout the year while they're at school. We need to make sure that our young people are doing something positive and contributing back to our society. And it takes a village to raise a child. So we have an interesting subject today. Now we're going to be talking about water. And we're going to be talking about lead pipes, right? And I know that people in the community have been hearing a lot about lead pipes and how we got to get rid of so many lead pipes in the city. Back in the day, there used to be some issues where folks would be very concerned about lead, and they thought it had some interesting adverse effects on kids and people. And it's a big concern. And then we found out that we have a lot of lead lines with the city. So today I'm joined with two folks from the Department of Water Management. Water Management has got some dollars to help folks in dealing with these lead pipe issues. Today we have with us to my right Angie Hawthrone. She's the Director of Public Affairs for the Department of Water Management. And we have Joel Vieyra, who's the first Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Water Management. Why don't we start out with you, Angel, if you don't mind me just calling you Angel.
That's quite all right. I'm probably going to toss it to Joel if you ask what I think you're going to ask.
Well, first of all, Angel, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell the people who Angel is?
Sure. As he said, my name is Angel Hawthrone, Director of Public Affairs and Outreach for the Department of Water Management. One of the many things I do is spend my time out in the neighborhoods and talking with residents about who we are as the Department of Water Management, what it is we do, what we don't do, and how we can best benefit and help. There's a lot of misunderstanding and confusion about who we are and what we do. A lot of people confuse us with water reclamation. A lot of people think that we send them their water bills. So it's a lot of education and a lot of sort of bringing people into the fold and understanding how we really and truly are here to help them.
Fantastic. And we also have Joel. Joel, why don't you tell the audience who Joel is?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Joel Vieyra, as the Alderman mentioned. I'm the first deputy in the Department of Water Management. That job basically entails coordination of the operations, looking at the money that's coming in and the money that's going out. As you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we got this lead service line program. It's a huge endeavor for our department, so we certainly appreciate the assistance from our public officials. And just by way of reference, I am largely a lifelong resident of the West Side. So.
All right, well that's good, Joe. You trying to get some points, man?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. South Side.
Angel shaking her head. We're not gonna hold that against Angel. South Side, West Side. Fantastic. So guys, you have this program where you have the lead service line ownership. 2023 developments and leaks and breaks overview. Why don't let's just dive in and tell people, because people have been hearing about lead service, and I know a lot of folks, they pipes bust and things like that, and folks, there used to be a thing, where there is a thing with the city with who's responsible, right, for the pipes and all of that stuff. Do we have some special money for these lead pipes, and how much is it? Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So we have multiple programs. We actually have 6 programs in the water department. They're funded from different sources, and the time frame is a little different with each of them. It depends on which program we're utilizing. So we have some what we call general obligation bonds. So this is money that the city uses for infrastructure type work. We also have some money from the federal government in the form of CDBG grant funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We also have some state money that's coming to us from the Illinois EPA to assist us across numerous programs. And we've also received some earmarks from some of our congressional delegation. In particular, we received $1 million from Senator Duckworth. We're also receiving another $2 million from Congressman Jackson, and $2 million from Congresswoman Schakowsky for our daycare lead service sign program. It is an extremely expensive undertaking. So if we do one lead service sign replacement on one home, the costs we're looking at right now are between $20,000 and $30,000. Wow. So the funding is limited right now, but it's coming from a variety of sources. We're just ramping up these programs, and the hope is that this year, 2023, we do a very good job and we get the word out with Angel's assistance, and we get buy-in from the elected officials so that we continue to receive funding for this. It's lead service line replacement. The one thing I just want to point out is high lead levels in children are dangerous, but when we encounter those lead levels are attributable to lead paint rather than lead in water.
Okay, so it's a difference in lead in water and lead in paint. Okay, so Joe, what has brought all of this to the surface, right? Why all of a sudden, all of these years, this comes out and this becomes a big necessity? What's the deal?
So I think a couple of things have happened. Number one is the fact that the state recently passed a law. They passed it in 2021, requiring full lead service sign replacement. It applied to Chicago beginning in 2023. In addition, there's just been more interest in the subject. The other issue we have here in Chicago is the fact that these lead service lines are in every single community. We have 400,000 lead service lines and they're everywhere. But I think the main driver for the bigger program that we have in the water department is the new state law that went into effect for Chicago in 2023. So we're trying.
So what did that state law say?
The new state law covers a variety of topics, but primarily, in a nutshell, what it says is that whenever there's a leak or a break on a service line, and maybe I should just back up with some additional info on how folks get their water. So if you go out to the lakefront, you see these tiny buildings out in the middle of the lake, about 2 miles out. Those are what we call the cribs. There are 2 of them.
Cribs?
Yes.
Go out there and kick it, huh?
Yes.
Kick it at the crib.
Back in the day, people actually did live there.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the water is coming in from the lake in those cribs, goes underground through a series of tunnels, and it comes to the filtration plants. We have 2 of them. We have the Jardine plant on the north side, and we have the Sawyer plant on the south side. They get filtered there. There's no lead in the water at that point. From there, it goes underground through these large tunnels that we have basically coming out of the filtration plants. They're underground, 150, 200 feet underground, different diameters, 16 foot, 12 foot, 13 foot. From there, they travel basically through gravity, and they get to the pumping stations. We have 12 pumping stations in Chicago. From there, the water is basically lifted from those tunnels into the pumping stations, and from there, the water is pumped to the water mains. None of that infrastructure is lead. It's all either cast iron or ductile iron, and in some of the older neighborhoods, we still have here and there wood water mains that we're slowly replacing. And so from there, there's a service line from the water main into your home. That's where we have the lead. It's that tiny point from the water main into your home or into your property. As I mentioned, they're in every community. They were actually required by code prior to 1986. So a question comes up, do I have a lead service line? If your home was built prior to 1986, chances are that it's probably made of lead. But again, it's a big problem. We're trying to get the lead out, literally. Chicago has more lead service lines than any other municipality in Illinois. We have about 60% of all the lead service lines, and we have the largest lead service lines of any municipality in the country.
So, Joe, guys, you spoke about 400,000 lead service lines that we have in the city of Chicago. So do we have to do all 400,000 of those have to be replaced? Or should be replaced?
Yes, sir. So under state law, that was approved in 2021, and that went into effect for Chicago in 2023. We do have to replace all the lead service lines within a certain time frame. It's 50 years.
We got 50 years to do it?
We have 50 years to do it. We're going to try to do it much faster than 50 years. But I think one of the other things really important for the residents, especially for younger viewers, or if you have younger children, is now is a great time, as you know, Alderman, to go into a trade. And plumbing is something that is a very good paying job. We in the water department are doing our best to recruit young people because this is an excellent career path. We know a lot of folks that go to college, spend X amount of money getting a great degree, and then you start working, your options are kind of limited. You don't have that problem in the trades. And so for plumbing, we're going to be busy here in Chicago for the next 50 years, certainly. And we know trades, or I know trades folks who started working in a trade basically right out of high school. And by the time they're 50, they are retired with a full pension and have, a couple of homes and a couple of vehicles here and there. So this lead service line program, which, as I mentioned, went into effect for Chicago in 2023, is also a job creator. And we don't have enough tradespeople. So this is an excellent opportunity for young people to really latch onto a well-paying, well-earning, fulfilling job for many, many years. So we got 400,000 services that need to be done within 50 years. And is this almost like an unfunded mandate? Do we have money for 400,000 lead service lines? That's exactly what it is, Mr. Chairman. It is an unfunded mandate. So basically, it's a state of Illinois law. We'd like to do the lead service line replacements, but now that there's a state mandate, we have to sort of comply with the state requirements. So it is an unfunded mandate. The total costs we are looking at are between $8 and $10 billion at this point. We're having a heck of a time trying to line up the funding because we're getting it from different sources. And, obviously we've worked with our city council members in helping us with that, and we thank you for the bond funds that you previously approved to help us do this work. But it's an extremely costly endeavor. We are looking for additional help from our federal partners. So if you might remember, Mr. Chairman, back in 2021, the U.S. Congress passed what's called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or the bill, which was basically the huge amount of funding for infrastructure projects. From that bucket, $15 billion were set aside for lead service line replacements.
Now that was from which bucket again? I apologize.
The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law.
Yeah, the infrastructure law, right?
Yes. Bridges, right. All sorts of projects, but a chunk, $15 billion was set aside for lead service line replacements.
In Chicago?
across the entire country.
Oh, wow. That's not a lot for the entire country.
No. For the entire country, $15 billion. And as I mentioned, Chicago alone, we need 8 to 10 billion.
How much did we get?
So at this point, we've not received anything.
Okay.
And that's because the way the money is allocated, it goes through the U.S. EPA, and then the U.S. EPA makes an allotment to the states. And for us in Illinois, it goes to the Illinois EPA. But there are currently state laws that determine how that funding gets spent. That funding is allocated right now to what are called disadvantaged communities. There's two categories of disadvantaged communities. They have a population cap. One is 10,000 and another one is 25,000. Obviously, in Chicago, we exceed that number significantly. So what we're doing is we are working with the Illinois EPA on revising that definition, and that definition is now going to be based on census tracts, which will allow us in Chicago to be eligible for a lot more of that money. Because as you know, Mr. Chairman, we have a lot of disadvantaged communities in our own city. So right now, Illinois is slated to get $107 million every year. So again, we're working with our state partners to make sure that we receive, our fair share of that.
Fantastic. So, of course, they make it look like we're getting so much money from that infrastructure grant thing. But I do know that several years ago, 2 administrations ago, we did a thing where we added something for the sewer and water to be continuously add on to the tax bill, if I'm not mistaken. Does that goes toward the lead replacement also? And that was, or that was just used for sewer replacement?
So what
you know what I'm referring to?
Yes. So what happened a couple of administrations ago was that we increased basically the water bill, water and your sewer rates, and that was done to ramp up an aggressive capital replacement program. So in Chicago, we have about 4,400 miles of water mains. We also have about 4,300 or 4,400 miles of sewer mains. That's enough to basically go, if you stretch that out, that would take us from Chicago to basically South Africa. So we have huge infrastructure. What you ideally would like to do is to go on a replacement cycle where you replace 1% of your assets each year, because these infrastructure assets, the water mains and the sewer mains, typically last about 100 years, maybe a little bit longer. So the only way to ramp up an aggressive capital program was to raise the rates. We actually did a very good job. The water department did an excellent job of using that funding. Over the past 20 years, we were able to do the water main replacements on the oldest water mains and the ones that were leaking the most, so that today, when you compare what we were pulling from the lake today, comparing it to what we were pulling from the lake 20 years ago, we are pulling 250 million gallons of water per day less than we were 20 years ago. That water was basically just getting wasted out in these leaks.
Under the ground.
Yes. So yes, there was a rate increase, but we did it to sort of continue with the long-term replacement of our infrastructure assets.
And we've been very successful with that.
Yes,
so
sir.
None of that money is being used for the lead replacement, though.
That's correct, and that's because
Why?
the funding sources cannot be used.
For private side.
Right.
And so when we talk about public and private side, part of a service line is owned by the city, part is owned by the homeowner. So usually in the parkway and the grassy area, there's a round piece of metal called the buffalo box. So from that circle, street side is public and house side is private. So we can only use our money for the public side.
But we use other money for the lead replacement on the private side.
That's correct.
Okay. So you all came to my office and we talked about this, and I wanted to get you on the show because, this is some great information that a lot of people don't know about. So Angel, you was telling me, if I'm not mistaken, how people can qualify to get this done, how they go through the process. So can you explain that so folks can know about it?
Well, within our programs, there's sort of different qualifications. So there's one qualification for leaks and breaks, one for the equity-led service line replacement. So maybe we can start with one and kind of step through.
Okay.
But before we do that, I did want to mention a couple of weeks ago, we created a website which is online that enables residents to look and see whether or not their service line is lead.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So people don't really know if they got lead or not. Okay, great.
Exactly. So they can go on the website, and hopefully we'll put that up on the screen, and they can see whether or not they do. If when they go on the website and put in their address and it says suspected, that means we're not sure. So we will only say that it is in fact lead if we have actually seen it.
So tell me this. So I recall you all were doing lead tests in people's houses several years ago, right? When Randy was in, Randy Connors was the commissioner. They were doing tests for lead, and then if they found lead, they would give people, they would give them these jugs,
Filter pitchers.
Filter pitchers and the kits so that they can, if they want to drink the water, to be clean. So did you find out from those lead tests, because that was like a voluntarily test, right? People would call in and say, I want to be tested, right? You were able to find out without those tests, or is this all including those tests? Did you all find out another way of finding out if people had lead or not?
Well, whenever we're in the ground and we're working in the ground and we look and see what the pipes are, and then we make a notation of that. So if we're working on a water main or a sewer main and we see the service line, then we note that it is in fact lead, and sometimes
so
we
you
actually
put
take
that
a
in your
picture.
notes, right? Okay, so you still aren't sure of the actually how many lead pipes we have in the city.
We have a good estimate. So if you're in a single family or two flat built before 1986, there's a very high probability that your service line is in fact lead.
Fantastic. So if people go to this website, they get to see if they have lead in their water line.
Lead or galvanized pipe.
Okay. So
and if it says suspected, that means we believe that it is, but because we have not physically seen it, then we'll say suspected. And so what residents can do is they can actually take a picture and then they could upload it, and then we will look and verify whether or not it's lead. And then we'll change it if it is in fact, turn it to lead.
So what's the process? So they go to the site, they see this.
They put in their address.
And
then it will then pop up whether or not it'll say lead for service line, or it may say suspected lead. So if it says suspected lead, you can say, okay, it probably is. Or if you want to know for sure, it will give you instructions on taking a photograph and how to upload it.
Okay. And then if they do have it, then what happens?
Then they know. And if they want to do something about it, they can apply to our equity-led service line replacement program, which is income qualified. We use HUD funds to fund that, so it's 80% of the area median income. So if they own the home, live in the home, meet the income requirement, we will do it for free. And when we say free, we're talking about the full replacement from the water main all the way in, including restoration.
So what you're saying is everyone can get it for free then?
Yes and no.
Okay. Because I know folks probably looking at this and say, wait a minute. Do I qualify for any of that stuff, right? What happens if I don't? I got lead.
Well, there's the leaks and breaks program, which I don't wish a leak or break on anyone, but if you currently have a leak or break on your service line, we will replace it for free. We have funds for that right now.
You will replace the lead line for free if it's
Service
leaking
line.
or breaking. So folks are gonna be like, okay, I can't qualify for HUD. Go break that pipe so we can get it for free. Y'all, Joe not laughing.
No, we don't want that.
So maybe now's a good chance to just mention the 6 programs that we've got.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, all of our programs right now are 5 of them are completely free. We have one program where people can volunteer to do their own lead service line at their own cost, and we waive the permit fees for that.
So you waive the permit fees?
Yes. The 5 other programs that we've got, the biggest one is leaks and breaks, as Angel kind of introduced it. So leaks and breaks is a program that under the new state law, if there's a leak or a break on your service line, we, the city, will do the full replacement. The important thing to keep in mind with respect to that is, where is the leak or break? If it's on the public side, we, the city, will do the repair and the replacement for free. If it's on the private side, if it's on the homeowner side, we will not do the repair. We, the city, will not do the repair, but we will do the full replacement. So this is the biggest program we've got.
That sounds contradictory.
It is contradictory, but it's pegged to what Angel mentioned earlier, which is we can't use our water rate money to pay or improve the private side. That's where this other grant funding comes in. This HUD money that Angel mentioned, the GO bond money, that general obligation bond money that I mentioned, which is not coming from our water rates. So that's an important distinction. But the other thing just to note is,
so first of all,